October 1st, 1949. Tiananmen Square, Beijing. A sea of faces stretches across the ancient capital, red flags fluttering under a crisp autumn sky. Atop the Gate of Heavenly Peace, a man in a gray tunic steps to a microphone. Mao Zedong, 55, his face weathered but resolute, declares the founding of the People's Republic of China. Cheers erupt, but they mask a nation scarred by decades of bloodshed. For 22 years, China endured a civil war that killed millions, reshaped its destiny, and birthed a new world power. This is no mere conflict, it's a saga of ideology, betrayal, and a struggle for China's soul. Welcome to Vestige Files, where we unearth the pivotal moments that shaped history. This is the story of the Chinese Civil War, a tale of two visions, one nation, and a fracture that still echoes today. To understand this war, we must rewind to the early 20th century, when China was a land in chaos. For over 2,000 years, emperors had ruled the Middle Kingdom, but by 1912, the Qing dynasty collapsed, ending centuries of imperial rule. The 1911 Xinhai Revolution, led by Sun Yat-sen, a visionary doctor turned revolutionary, toppled the monarchy, birthing the Republic of China. Sun dreamed of a unified modern nation, but his republic was born weak. Warlords carved up the country, ruling provinces like feudal kings. Peasants toiled under crushing poverty, while foreign powers, Britain, Japan, Russia, exploited China's ports and resources. Their gunboats docked in Shanghai and Tianjin. The Chinese called it the Century of Humiliation, a wound that festered in the national psyche. Enter the two forces that would define the Civil War, the Nationalists, or Kuomintang, KMT, and the Communists, or Chinese Communist Party, CCP. The KMT, founded by Sun Yat-sen in 1912, sought a strong, centralized republic blending democracy with Chinese tradition. After Sun's death in 1925, leadership passed to Chiang Kai-shek, a 38-year-old military man with a shaved head and a steely gaze. Trained in Japan and hardened by warlord battles, Chiang was a nationalist to his core, believing only a unified China under KMT rule could restore its greatness. The CCP, founded in 1921 in Shanghai, had a different vision. Inspired by Marxism and the Russian Revolution, its leaders, men like Chen Duxiu and later Mao Zedong, dreamed of a classless society where peasants, not elites, held power. Mao, a Hunan peasant's son, was 28 in 1921, a library assistant with a poet's heart and a revolutionary's fire. He saw China's millions of farmers as the key to revolution. In the mid-1920s, these rivals briefly united. Sun Yat-sen, desperate to crush the warlords and unify China, forged the first united front in 1923 with the CCP, backed by Soviet aid. The KMT's military arm, the National Revolutionary Army, trained in the Whampoa Military Academy under Chiang's command, included communist officers. Together, they launched the Northern Expedition in 1926, a campaign to defeat the warlords and unify China under the KMT. By 1927, their army swept north from Guangzhou, capturing Wuhan, Shanghai, and Nanjing. Victory seemed near, but beneath the alliance, tensions simmered. The KMT's base, merchants, landlords, and urban elites, clashed with the CCP's focus on peasants and workers. Chiang distrusted the communists' growing influence, especially their organizing of labor unions and peasant revolts. The breaking point came in April 1927 in Shanghai. The city, a glittering hub of trade and vice, was a communist stronghold. Workers led by CCP organizer Zhou Enlai had seized Shanghai for the KMT, expecting a share in the new order. But Chiang saw the CCP as a threat to his power. On April 12th, he unleashed a purge. KMT troops and gangsters from Shanghai's Green Gang rounded up communists, executing thousands in the streets. Blood ran in the gutters as union halls burned. Zhou barely escaped. Others weren't so lucky. The Shanghai massacre shattered the United Front, igniting the Chinese Civil War. The CCP, decimated, fled to the countryside, their urban dreams crushed. Mao, now rising in the party, argued for a new strategy, a rural revolution, arming peasants to seize power from the ground up. Jiang, consolidating his rule in Nanjing, vowed to wipe out the Red Bandits and build a KMT-led China. By 1927, the stage was set. Two men, two parties, two visions. Chiang Kai-shek, the Generalissimo, dreamed of a unified China under his iron grip, modernized but rooted in Confucian order. Mao Zedong, the peasant revolutionary, envisioned a classless utopia born from the barrel of a gun. Their clash would tear China apart, leaving a legacy of division and rebirth. The powder keg was lit, now it would explode. The Chinese Civil War wasn't a single battle, but a grinding, decades-long struggle, punctuated by moments of uneasy truce and external threats. From 1927 to 1937, the KMT and CCP fought a brutal, low-intensity conflict known as the First Phase. Chiang, based in Nanjing, controlled China's cities and coastlines, building a government recognized by the world. His KMT army, backed by German advisors and modern weapons, launched extermination campaigns against communist strongholds. The CCP, battered by the Shanghai Massacre, retreated to rural bases, particularly in Jiangxi province, where Mao established the Jiangxi Soviet in 1931. This Red Republic was a bold experiment. Land was redistributed to peasants, women gained rights, and schools taught Marxist ideals. By 1934, it governed 3 million people, a thorn in Chiang's side. But Chiang was relentless. In 1934, he encircled the Jiangxi Soviet with 700,000 troops, blockading food and supplies. The CCP faced annihilation. Mao, Zhou, and Lai, and 86,000 communists broke through, beginning the Long March, a 6,000-mile retreat across rivers, mountains, and swamps to escape the KMT. From October 1934 to October 1935, they marched through 11 provinces, fighting battles, hunger, and disease. Only 8,000 survived, reaching Yan'an in Shanxi province. The Long March was a defeat, but it forged the CCP's legend. Mao, now undisputed leader, emerged as a symbol of resilience. His guerrilla tactics, strike fast, retreat faster, becoming the CCP's blueprint. In Yan'an, the communists rebuilt, winning peasant loyalty with land reforms and anti-landlord campaigns. Meanwhile, Chiang's KMT grew corrupt, taxing peasants to fund a lavish regime in Nanjing. His focus on crushing the CCP blinded him to a growing threat: Japan. In 1931, Japan had seized Manchuria, renaming it Manchukuo. By 1937, Japan launched a full invasion of China, capturing Beijing, Shanghai, and Nanjing. The Nanjing Massacre saw Japanese troops slaughter 200,000 civilians and soldiers in 6 weeks, a scar that still defines China's memory of the war. Facing national crisis, Chiang and Mao formed the Second United Front in 1937, halting the Civil War to fight Japan. The alliance was uneasy. KMT troops held the front lines, while CCP guerrillas harassed Japanese supply lines in the countryside. Mao's forces grew, recruiting peasants who saw the communists as defenders against both Japan and landlords. By 1945, Japan's defeat in World War II ended the external threat, but the truce between KMT and CCP collapsed. The Civil War's second phase, 1945 to 1949, would decide China's fate. Chiang, backed by American aid, $2 billion in weapons and loans, held the advantage. His 4.3 million troops dwarfed the CCP's 1.2 million. In 1945, the KMT controlled China's cities, railways, and coastlines, while the CCP held rural strongholds, particularly in the north. Both sides raced to seize Manchuria, left vacant by Japan's surrender. The U.S., hoping for peace, mediated talks in 1945 to 1946, led by General George Marshall. Chiang and Mao met in Chongqing, smiling for cameras but distrusting each other. The talks failed. Chiang demanded the CCP disarm. Mao refused, knowing it would mean surrender. By mid-1946, full-scale war erupted. The KMT struck first, capturing Yan'an in 1947. But Chiang's army, bloated and poorly led, faltered. Corruption riddled the KMT. Generals pocketed funds, soldiers went unpaid, and conscripts deserted. Inflation soared, alienating urban merchants who once backed Chiang. The CCP, meanwhile, thrived. Mao's People's Liberation Army, PLA, renamed in 1946, used guerrilla tactics to wear down KMT forces, then shifted to conventional warfare. Lin Biao, a brilliant CCP commander, masterminded campaigns in Manchuria, encircling KMT armies in cities like Changchun and Mukden. By 1948, the PLA had grown to 2.8 million, fueled by defectors and peasant recruits. The tide turned in the Huaihai campaign, November 1948 to January 1949, a massive battle involving 1.6 million troops. The PLA annihilated 550,000 KMT soldiers, capturing tanks and artillery. Chiang's dream of a unified China was crumbling. In cities like Shanghai, citizens starved as KMT officials hoarded wealth. A 1947 rice riot saw housewives storm granaries, only to be gunned down by police. In contrast, the CCP's discipline won hearts. In Henan, a peasant named Li Wei recalled PLA soldiers sharing their rations, a stark contrast to KMT troops who looted his village. Mao's promise of land reform resonated with millions who'd never owned a plot. By early 1949, the PLA swept south, capturing Beijing in January, Nanjing in April, and Shanghai in May. Chiang, his army shattered, fled to Taiwan with 2 million followers, including his government's gold reserves. On October 1, 1949, Mao stood in Tiananmen Square, proclaiming the People's Republic of China. The KMT's Republic of China survived only on Taiwan, a fragment of Chiang's vision. The Civil War's human cost was staggering. Between 6 and 10 million died, soldiers, civilians, and victims of famine and disease. Entire cities like Changchun were reduced to rubble during sieges. Families were torn apart. In Shandong, a farmer named Zhang Hu lost 2 sons, one to the KMT, one to the PLA. Neither knowing the other fought for the enemy. In Hunan, a schoolteacher named Chen Mei fled KMT purges, only to lose her husband to a CCP land reform execution. The war's brutality spared no one. The People's Republic of China rose from the ashes in 1949, a nation transformed but deeply scarred. Mao's CCP consolidated power, launching land reforms that gave millions of peasants their first taste of ownership. By 1952, 90% of farmland was redistributed, though often through violent purges of landlords. 1 to 2 million were executed or imprisoned. The CCP rebuilt cities, nationalized industries, and promoted literacy, lifting millions from poverty. Yet Mao's vision came at a cost. The Great Leap Forward, 1958 to 1962, and Cultural Revolution, 1966 to 1976, killed tens of millions through famine and political purges, betraying the revolution's promise for some. In Taiwan, Chiang established a KMT stronghold, ruling as a dictator under martial law until his death in 1975. Backed by the US, Taiwan industrialized rapidly, becoming a democratic Asian tiger by the 1990s. But it remained isolated, claimed by the PRC as a renegade province. The war's legacy reshaped China and the world. The PRC emerged as a global power, its 1949 victory inspiring communist movements across Asia. The Cold War solidified the divide. Taiwan aligned with the West, the PRC with the Soviet bloc until the 1970s Sino-Soviet split. The Taiwan Strait, a 100-mile stretch of water, became a flashpoint, with skirmishes in the 1950s and ongoing tensions today. The war's border, less a line on a map than an ideological chasm, split families. In Fujian, siblings like the Lin family were divided, some fleeing to Taiwan, others staying in the PRC, unable to reunite for decades. Smuggling and secret letters became lifelines across the strait. The human stories are heart-wrenching. In 1949, a Shanghai merchant named Wang Tao boarded the last ship to Taiwan, leaving his wife and daughter behind, believing they'd follow. They never did, caught in the PRC's Iron Curtain. In Yan'an, a peasant woman named Liu Fen joined the PLA, only to learn her brother died fighting for the KMT in Manchuria. These fractures defined a generation, yet defiance persisted. In 1950, a group of Guangdong students painted anti-CCP slogans on village walls, risking execution to protest Mao's rule. In Taiwan, dissidents whispered of democracy, planting seeds that bloomed decades later. Today, the Chinese Civil War's shadow lingers. The PRC, now an economic giant, celebrates 1949 as its founding myth, while suppressing dissent. Taiwan, a vibrant democracy, faces constant pressure from Beijing, its status a global diplomatic minefield. The war's questions endure. Was Mao's victory a liberation or a new tyranny? Did Chiang's retreat save a piece of China's dream or doom it to exile? The conflict showed how ideology can fracture a nation, turning brothers into enemies and dreams into ash. What do you think? Did the Chinese Civil War forge a stronger China or leave wounds too deep to heal? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If this dive into China's struggle gripped you, hit that like button, subscribe to Vestige Files, and ring the bell for more stories of history's turning points.